Hello, basketball people, we have news. Let's go to more news about the Golden State Warriors. I ask you to give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, as I am a Warriors fan. Warriors owner Joe Lacob has stated that he wants to win the championship now because Stephen Curry wants his fifth title before retiring. The return of Klay Thompson is being suggested, as he hasn't been playing well for the Dallas Mavericks, but alongside his friends Stephen Curry and Draymond Green, Klay Thompson could return to his glory days. Bringing Thompson back is a gamble that could pay off, and the Warriors will be strengthened offensively to pursue another championship. The signing of Anthony Davis is also being suggested, but he is an expensive player who is frequently injured, making it more difficult for the Warriors to secure this deal. The Warriors could bring Klay Thompson back and reunite the Splash Brothers. The Golden State Warriors are quite old already. Why not get even older with a trade to try and make one more championship push with Stephen Curry? That's the idea pitched by Chandler Parsons on the Run It Back show on Tuesday. Parsons wants the Warriors to call up the Dallas Mavericks, who have Klay Thompson and Anthony Davis. He points out the fact that Jonathan Kuminga might feel like the scapegoat. He's the obvious one to move, Parsons says of Kuminga. On Klay, Parsons said, "I'd love to see Klay Thompson somehow get back here. He doesn't seem to be doing anything in Dallas. I don't know if that moves the needle for Golden State, but he'd bring shooting." On AD, Anthony Davis is a name you're hearing around if he can be healthy. That's a big if. That's more of a win-now move that could bump them from a play-in spot to a contender category. The Mavs probably wouldn't mind moving Klay and AD. It's time for Dallas to build around 18-year-old Cooper Flagg, rather than their veteran group. Would the Warriors give up Kuminga, or Brandon Podziemski, or draft picks? Thompson probably doesn't have much trade value at all anymore. Davis still should, though, if Golden State can figure out how to line the finances up. It's certainly an interesting thing to imagine. Takeaways from Warriors win over Jazz: veteran comes alive with best game of season. The Golden State Warriors, 10-9, snapped their three-game losing streak with a 134-117 win over the Utah Jazz, 5-12, on Monday. Stephen Curry led all scorers with 31 points, and Jimmy Butler had the game's most impressive stat line with 18 points on 8 of 11 shooting, 7 assists and no turnovers. Buddy Hield also had his best game in weeks with 20 points on 8 of 13 shooting, but a different Warriors veteran was even more impressive. GP2 comes alive after getting surprising starting nod. With Draymond Green injured, the Warriors needed someone to help fill all the voids that come from his absence. The voids include playmaking, rebounding and impact defense. Gary Payton too did his best impression Monday. That Payton battled much bigger players and held his own on defense is the least surprising development. What one couldn't expect was a career-high 8 assists to go with his 9 points and 6 rebounds. Payton also had 1 steal, a backtap Lauri Markkanen never saw coming that led to Payton throwing a behind-the-back pass to Hield for a layup. If Green misses Wednesday's game against the Rockets, expect Steve Kerr to keep the same starting lineup with Payton coming off his best game of the season. Butler shows his value by continuing to fuel positive non-Steph minutes. With 4 minutes to go in the game, the Warriors led by 24. Curry was a +4. That means the Warriors were +20 in the Butler minutes without Curry. The key stretch came in the second quarter. The Warriors started the quarter with a 21-0 run, and the first 18 of those points were scored with Butler on and Curry off. Going into Monday, Golden State had a +1.0 net rating with Butler on and Curry off, per cleaning the glass. They won't often get dominant non-Curry stretches like they got Monday, but the fact that they are rarely getting dominated is a testament to Butler's ability to control the game with his scoring, ball handling and passing. Richard might be better served as energy guy off the bench. Well, Richard had started the last 6 games for the Warriors, and he didn't do anything glaringly obvious that suggested he should be demoted. He shot 48% in those games, but he only scored more than 6 points twice. Perhaps he was getting lost in the shuffle as Curry, Butler, Moses Moody and Draymond Green looked for their offense. On Monday, Richard came off the bench and had a big impact with 9 points, 6 rebounds, 2 steals and a game-high +29 plus-minus. He got up 7 field goal attempts, which was his 5th highest total of the season. What's interesting is the Curry-Richard-Moody-Butler-Green starting lineup has a +10.1 net rating per cleaning the glass, but overall the Curry-Richard duo entered Monday with a -11.7 net rating. It's hard to say if that's a small sample size aberration or a concerning trend, but even if you don't buy the Richard and Curry duo numbers, Richard has the type of game that tends to be valuable off the bench. As long as Richard continues to get playing time, he topped 20 minutes for the 5th time Monday. I'm guessing he won't mind coming off the bench. We'll see what Kerr decides to do with the lineup when Green returns. Warriors' fatal flaw has no simple solution for Steve Kerr. The Warriors are no longer a good defensive team on the perimeter, and it's hurting them in more ways than one. As the Golden State Warriors have begun the season with a 10-9 record, one of their defining flaws has been their inability to prevent opposing teams, even those who are weak offensively, from dominating them on the interior given the relative lack of size they have been forced to operate with. Yet, according to Anthony Slater of ESPN, the problem can actually be traced back to their lack of lateral quickness on the perimeter, a weakness that is coupling with their lack of bona fide rim protection to compromise their defensive identity as a whole. The Warriors keep pointing to the fact that they are not staying in front of guys on the perimeter. If you are going to be small, if you are going to have lack of rim protection, if you are going to be outmanned on the glass, you cannot also just be getting blown by to the rim. Although the problem is rather easily identifiable, head coach Steve Kerr has a tall task ahead of him in attempting to address it utilizing his current personnel. The Warriors desperately need to become a better defensive team if they are going to be contenders this season. Last season, following their blockbuster acquisition of Jimmy Butler at the trade deadline, the Warriors very quickly became one of the most solid teams in the league on both ends of the floor, capitalizing upon the energy and scoring ability of their revamped starting lineup. Across all games following the All-Star break last season, Golden State was first in the NBA in defensive rating. Yet, as players such as Butler and Draymond Green continue to age, and the Warriors continue to fail to provide their rotation with capable rim protection, their defense will only decline, and that is exactly what has happened so far this season. While they are a respectable 10th in defensive rating, they are 18th in defensive rebounding percentage and opponent points in the paint, meaning that teams are often taking advantage of their compromised interior defense. While they do have a set of solid perimeter defenders on their roster, including Moses Moody and Will Richard, there are enough players who have come to represent targets in that area of the court that opposing teams are having too easy of a time exploiting this weakness. While DeAnthony Melton will return at some point, it still will be exceedingly difficult for the Warriors to construct a lineup that does not have one or more glaring defensive weaknesses. Some of their rougher losses this season, such as the ones to the Portland Trail Blazers and the Oklahoma City Thunder, put this fact on full display. For Steve Kerr, therefore, there is no simple solution to this problem, but solving it will be absolutely vital to any championship hopes that Golden State has this season. Steve Kerr dishes out punishment to Warriors guard after horror mistake. This was a glaring and inexcusable mistake. Brandon Podziemski has been viewed by many as a favorite of Steve Kerr's over his first 3 seasons in the league, but even he wasn't immune to a place on the bench following a horror defensive mistake in the first quarter of the Golden State Warriors' 134-117 victory over the Utah Jazz at Chase Center on Monday night. The Warriors got off to a slow start in the opening period, signified by Podziemski's defensive lapse that left Keontae George, who had already drilled his first 3 three-pointers, wide open on the right wing. The young guard duly knocked down his 4th three, forcing a timeout from an irate Kerr who was frustrated with his team's lack of defensive attentiveness. Brandon Podziemski's role was reduced after Monday's defensive error. While Podziemski wasn't completely benched for the remainder of the game, he was removed from the rotation for an entire second quarter where the Warriors outscored the Jazz 41-20 and completely flipped the momentum after trailing by 9 at the end of the first period. It was clearly a statement from Kerr that those sort of inexcusable mistakes won't be tolerated, even from someone who entered the game averaging the 4th most minutes on the team behind the veteran trio of Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green. With just over 5 minutes left in a game Golden State had in their keeping with a 23-point lead, Podziemski had played less than 13 total minutes. He did play the final 5 minutes, but that too might have been a punishment of sorts from Kerr, who forced him to play in garbage time until the final buzzer. Podziemski finished with 6 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists and 2 steals in just under 18 minutes, shooting 1 of 4 from the floor and finishing as a -2 in his team's 17-point victory. It was a notable lack of playing time for the third-year guard, particularly when the Warriors were already without key rotation players Draymond Green, Jonathan Kuminga and Al Horford. Gary Payton too, while Richard and Tracy Jackson-Davis all played more minutes than Podziemski despite each spending time completely out of the rotation at different points so far this season. Buddy Hield too played more minutes, finding some form with a season-high 20 points to go with 4 rebounds and 5 assists on 8 of 13 shooting from the floor. This might just be a one-off and Podziemski could be back to playing nearly 30 minutes on Wednesday against the Houston Rockets, but this was nonetheless a significant move that typified Kerr's urgency in drilling in important details to his players. Former Celtic player has just encountered another obstacle at his new team. Former Boston Celtics center Al Horford is expected to miss the Golden State Warriors' next 3 games with sciatica nerve irritation. End top. The Herd. Former Boston Celtics center Al Horford has hit yet another speed bump to start his Golden State Warriors tenure. According to the Warriors, Horford is expected to miss at least 3 games with sciatica nerve irritation. For perspective, Los Angeles Lakers forward LeBron James battled a similar injury heading into this year, and he just recently made his season debut against the Utah Jazz. This is something that could keep Horford out for a while. The 3 matchups he's expected to miss include Monday's game against the Jazz, Wednesday's meeting with the Houston Rockets, then Saturday's game versus the New Orleans Pelicans. Aside from the Rockets game, that's not a bad stretch to miss for Horford, who's already racked up 5 absences this season due to a combination of rest days and a lingering foot issue. Even when he's been on the court, the 39-year-old hasn't quite looked like himself wearing the Golden State uniform on multiple levels. Of course, it's strange seeing him in anything other than Celtics green at this point, but Horford's play has undeniably taken a step back thus far. Through 12 appearances as a Warrior, he's averaged just 5.8 points, 4.2 rebounds, and 1.8 assists per game on a career-low 34.2% from the field. Horford's 3-point shooting has dipped, too. He's made just 32% of his long-range attempts, his worst rate since the 2014-15 season, when he shot just 30.6%. Horford's production waning along with his durability has to be disappointing for the Warriors, who hoped that he'd be a difference maker for them after their strong second half of the 2024-25 campaign. The Warriors haven't given Horford the opportunity he expected when he left Boston. Not only has Horford underachieved, but the team as a whole has, too. Through 18 games, they're sitting right at .500, which slots them at 8th in the Western Conference. Ironically, they're a half-game worse than Boston now, a squad that the big man didn't feel would give him the same opportunity to compete as Golden State would. I think that where Boston was as a team, even though I called them my home and everything was there for me, they just weren't in a position to offer me the opportunity that I wanted, Horford told The Athletic's Nick Friedell last month. It made sense at the time. Jason Tatum is going to miss a significant chunk of the season recovering from a torn Achilles tendon, while Boston lost key players like Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis in salary-shedding trades. There was 2 things there, Horford continued. I think the financial part was a component, but more than that, it was the winning part of it, trying to contend for a championship. And I think there was a lot of things up in the air, and it just felt like they weren't in that same vision, obviously, because JT getting hurt, that takes a big toll. So I think at that point I really had to, up until then I was staying in Boston the whole time. Though many Celtics fans might be upset with Horford for leaving, his meaning to the franchise can't be ignored. He appeared in 465 regular season games and 119 playoff games across his 2 stints in Boston. Horford served as a tremendous role model and mentor to Tatum and Jaylen Brown when they were in their first few NBA seasons, and his contributions shouldn't be taken for granted. An irate Steve Kerr dismisses Jimmy Butler's take on the Warriors' defense. Don't care. Steve Kerr isn't concerned with labeling the Golden State Warriors' issues, he just wants improvement. The Golden State Warriors have struggled to build off their strong start to the NBA season. They currently sit 8th in the West with a 9-9 record. Some believe their defense is the issue, with Jimmy Butler pointing to the rest of the side's lack of effort. However, Steve Kerr isn't concerned with specifics, he wants these issues to go away. Steve Kerr says Warriors must not allow silly mistakes on defense. Steve Kerr spoke to reporters recently, when he was asked about Jimmy Butler's comments about the Warriors' defensive efforts. While he acknowledged there was some validity in his comments, Kerr would rather focus on fixing the issue than categorizing what the issue is. There's some of that. Activity level just often covers up blown coverage. Is that fatigue? Is that lack of focus? I don't care how we categorize it, what I care about is that we don't give up a back cut with the game on the line. Kerr was clearly frustrated with the issues the Warriors displayed on the defensive end in their last game against the Portland Trail Blazers. Warriors will struggle on defensive end if Draymond Green remains out. During the interaction with the press ahead of their game against the Utah Jazz, Steve Kerr revealed that Draymond Green was questionable for their next game. Green suffered a rolled ankle while trying to guard Donovan Clingan during their last outing, and it has impacted his status. Green has long been considered the Warriors' defensive anchor, and his absence could make the side more vulnerable. If the Warriors can figure out a way to play good defense without Green, it will be a good sign for their chances of improving defensively when Green returns.